and welcome everyone to the first video of our second outline, which is Basics with R. So this video is part 1. Let's see that what topics we will be covering in this outline. First of all, we have vectors, then matrices, then list, then factors, and then data frames. So all of these are basically data structures, and we will learn about each one of them in each video. So this video is about vectors, and we will answer some basic questions to get familiar with the term of vectors. First of all, we will see what are vectors. Then we will see how to create a vector and name it. Then we will see what built-in functions we will use on vectors. Later, we will cover some mathematical operations that we will perform on vectors. In the last, we will see how to assess vector elements. So what are vectors? A vector is the most fundamental and significant R data structure. It's simply a collection of elements with the same data type, such as character, numerical, or logical, which is true or false elements. Now you have to note down one thing here, that vectors are one-dimensional data structure. You can make a vector of any length using R's combined function and then arrange the vector's elements inside parentheses with comma separating them. The different types of atomic vectors are 6 and mentioned below. First one is integer, that represents numbers. Next we have double, that stores floating point numbers. Then we have character, which is just like a string. Then we have logical, which represents Boolean values which are true and false. The second last we have is raw, which is an unusual data type and is not frequently used. Next we have complex, which represents imaginary numbers. Now how to create a vector and name it? You might be thinking about it, but it's really simple. The creation of vector is simple. With the aid of combined function, we can create vectors of arbitrary length. They can be one of the following mentioned below. It can be a single element vector, or it can be a multiple element vector. Now let's move to RStudio and do some implementation and see how we can create a single element vector with 6 atomic data types and multiple elements as well. Now let's say first of all, I create a vector with the name of v1 and use the combined function. First of all, I will create an integer vector, let's say 5L, then I will say type of vec1 to make sure if it's an integer or not and run it. Alright, as I can see here that it's an integer and it's stored in the environment. Similarly, I will create the rest of the atomic type of vectors. I will say 9.5 and then I say type of vec2 and run it. I can see it's a double and it's also stored in the environment. Similarly, I will say vec3 by using the combined function. I will create a character, let's say XYZ, and type of vec3 and run it. Alright, it's a character. Now you can note down one thing here, that all of these are single element vectors. Vec4, and by using C, I say true and type of vec4, which should be a logical. All right, it's logical. Then I say week 5 and by using C. Let's say, for instance, 5 plus 5 iota and dot of week 5. It should be a complex. All right. Now, in the last, I will say week 6, and by using C, I will say car to raw, and let's say ABC, and then dot of week 6 and run it. All right, it's a raw data type. Now you might be wondering that how we can create a multiple element vector. Let's say I create a menu of multiple items by saying pizza, fries, pasta, burger, nuggets, and sandwiches. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 6 items in our multiple vector. All right, now I will say print menu. Yeah, you can see here that we have 6 items and they are stored in the menu vector. Now you might be wondering that what if we want to name these elements in our vector? So we can do one thing here. We can make a multiple element vector of name. Let's say food 1, food 2, food 3, food 4, and food 5, and the last one, food 6. Now, in order to name the elements in a vector, you have to make sure that the length is the same as the previous vector. All right. Now I will use the function names, and I want to give the names to menu, and what names I want to give are in the name. Now let's print the menu with the names. All right. Here you can see that the names have been given, such as food 1, food 2, food 3, and so on. You can also do this by saying fruits. All right, I have made a vector of multiple elements, which is fruits. I will say fruit 1, and I will use the sign of equals to. And now I will say orange. And similarly, I say fruit 2, and I will use equals to operator and then say apple. And now I will print fruits. Now you can see here that the names have been given. Now let's move back to the slides. Let's see what simple built-in functions we can use on vectors. First of all, we have seen how to use the combine function to make a list of elements in a vector. Now we have one more function, which is length. We can use this function to find out the length of a vector. Let's use it. Let's say I want to print out the length of fruits vector and run it. I can see that the length is 2 as there are only 2 elements in the vector. Similarly, if I say print length, and find out the length of menu vector, then it says 6. Next, we have the function of sum. Let's say I define a vector num and I say combine 1, 2, 3, and 4. So these are the elements in my vector, which are in fact the numerical values. And I say print sum and num. Well, obviously, I have not run the whole code. That's why it made an error. Now you can see here that the value is 10. Now let's move back to slides. Next, we have the function of sequence. We use this function to generate a sequence of elements. Let's say I want to create a vector num, and I say create a sequence from 1 to 6 by using the column operator. Then I say print num. All right, let's run it. Here you can see that this function has generated a sequence. We haven't called the original function, but we have used the colon operator. Another thing to note down here is the value of num is override. Now let's use the function of sequence. Let's say I want to create a sequence and I say sequence from create this sequence from 10 to 50 and by 5, and I will say print num. All right, let's run it. Here you can see that the sequence has made a sequence of values and each value is incremented by 5 from 10 to 50. Next, we have the function of sort. Let's say I create another vector num2, and in this multiple element vector, I put the values 1, 4, 2, and 8, and 5. Let's say print, and then I will use the function of sort, and I say sort the vector num2, and then I will run this chunk of code, and it says 1, 2, 4, 5, and 8. Next, we have the function of rep, which we basically use for repeating a sequence of values in a vector. All right, let's say num3, and I use the function of rep, and what I want to do is 1, 2, and I will say that repeat each value in vector by 2. So it will say 1, 1, and 2, 2. Let's print num3 to find out what it actually do. Just like we said, it prints 1, 1, 2, 2. You can do another thing with this function, which is, let's say num4, and I will say rep, and using the C function, combine function, I will say 1, 2, and then after that, I will say times. So this parameter is actually repeating the sequence. All right. Now I will say print num4, and then let's run it. So it's saying 1, 2, and then after that, it has repeated again 1, 2. What if I say 3? So here I can see that it has repeated it 3 times. I can do one more thing here, which is actually repeating the sequence individually according to our desire. I say 1, 2, and repeat it times equals to C, and repeat 1 5 times, and 2 3 times. And then let's print num5 to find out the difference. I will run this code. See, it has printed 1 5 times and 2 3 times. Now let's move back to slides. Let's see if we can perform any mathematical operations on vectors or not. We can perform addition, we can also do subtraction, multiplication, and we can do division on vectors. Let's do it. Let's say I create my first vector, vector1, and I put the value 1, 2, and 3. And I create another vector, which is vector2, and I put the values 3, 6, 9. All right. Now, I want to store the result in a vector and store the result of vector 1 plus vector 2. All right. Now, I will print down the result. Let's run this code. All right, seems we have made a mistake here. Oh, I forgot to use the combine function. Let's run it. All right, so this is the output 4, 8, 12. Similarly, we can store results to in a new vector and perform, let's say, subtraction. Vect 1 minus vect 2, and then print out the result 2. All right. Similarly, I will say result 3 and vect 3 multiply by vect 4. Sorry, vect 2 and vect 1. And then print result 3. All right. Let's run it. Now, what if we want to do the division on two vectors? Vect 1 divided by vect 2. And let's print out the result. Result 4. All right. Let's print it. All right. You can do one more thing here, which is, let's say, result 5. And I want to multiply the vector 1 values with 2. And then I say print result 5. Now let's move back to slides. The very last thing of this video is about how we can access vector elements. By referring to the element's index number or using the C function enclosed in brackets, you can access a single or multiple vector elements. Giving a negative integer that accesses all items except the one provided is another method to access a vector's item. We can also use booleans as an additional indexing option. Now let's do it. Let's say I had a vector which was menu, and then let's print it. Now what if I want to access only the specific items from this vector? Let's say I create a vector of favorite items and I say menu and store only, let's say I love fries and I love pasta, so they are on the index 2 and 3. And I say print favorite items. Let's run this code. It seems we have done a mistake. All right, I forgot to use the combine function here. Let's run the code once again. Here you can see that I have got fries and pasta as my favorite items. Now let's say I want to do some changes. Let's say my taste buds are now changed and now I like the items from fries, pasta, burger, and also nuggets. Show the values from 2 to the index of 5 by using the colon operator, and let's print out favorite items and run this code. See, now let's say if you want to access all of the elements except pizza, you don't like it, but you like all of them. So I will say favorite items, all right, and menu by using the braces and combine function. I say give me all of the values except the very first one. Now I say print favorite items. All right, let's run it. So this is how you can access the elements from a vector. Now let's move back to the slides. All right, so this is the end of today's video. Now good luck. See you next time.